Well, so that's how it panned out at the vetting committee today. Now, a little later, we'll bring you some education as to whether or not, if you want or if you're seeking a mining license, should it go through Parliament. But we did say that it does not necessarily have to go through Parliament as the laws provide now. And it is also refreshing to know that the minister designate said that if given the note, will not be issuing new licenses, at least from now until it's further noted. Now, let's talk to Awula Sewa. She is an eco-conscious citizen, and I know that she's been pushing for one of the things that the minister-designate had mentioned at the committee today, that if given the power, was going to ensure that they repeal the LI 2462 that seeks to allow persons to mine in forest reserves. Thank you for joining us, and I don't know if you've been following the vetting today, and how does this news come to you?
Well, I mean, we've been advocating for a very long time that LI 2462, which is a very perverse piece of legislation, which should never have been passed, should be repealed. And in fact, there's nothing, absolutely nothing stopping Parliament from doing so. Because all we need, they have the majority in Parliament, and even the NPP has said that they have no objections to it being repealed. So that's one of the first things that should be done. Because so long as this perverse piece of legislation is there, you'll be having mining in forest reserves, including globally significant biodiversity areas. We did hear the minister talk about no new mining licenses, but let's be aware of language. What about the old ones? They are already mining licenses, allowing people to be in forest reserves, which should not happen at all. Forest reserves are not for mining. So what are we going to do? They should be revoked, because mining licenses are not for forest reserves.
And so for you, it doesn't even matter if persons are mining sustainably. It is just a matter that for the forest reserves, they shouldn't even mine there at all.
Why do we bother to call something a forest reserve? A forest reserve is for your forest to be there. These forests are there for a purpose. We know why they are there. So it's difficult to appreciate why we would want to mine. I mean, even I know in some cases you're thinking of sustainable logging, but who in his right mind wants to mine in a forest reserve? That should not happen. So all the licenses should be revoked, and yes, no further licenses. But we need to hurry up and repeal LI 2462 and then declare a state of emergency and make sure that we remove all mining equipment, all miners from our forest reserves and our water bodies. This is one of the priorities. You cannot begin to do anything sustainable if you don't secure your forest reserves and water bodies.
Many have said that, declaring a state of emergency has very deeper consequences. And so for you, it's not even enough that he says that they're going to ensure that they repeal that LI. You're also thinking that they should declare a state of emergency. Is this really called for?
Well, if you repeal the LI, there's still mining going on. There are people with licenses to mine in forest reserves. There's illegal mining going on in forest reserves. We know that reporters, including Erastus Asaredonko, including Ohemeng Tewe, have been attacked, left for, they could have been killed. They've been to forest reserves, been attacked. And we know that if we don't do something drastic, we are gradually sinking to the level of some countries in Latin America, where the drug cartels control certain areas, and you can't go there. Very soon, the mining cartels will be controlling our forest reserves and other areas. We need to nip it in the bud, because we are soon getting to the point of no return. So we need to have our intelligence go properly equipped, properly armed into the forest reserve, and remove all miners, all mining equipment from both the forest reserves and the water bodies before you can do any resetting. It's ludicrous to think that you can do any resetting if you don't first secure the integrity of our forest reserves and water bodies.
Let's explore the license that allows people anyway to even mine. Many have said that if you look at the way the law is structured, it kind of gives the minister the ultimate power to issue the licenses, though it will go through the Minerals Commission, it will go through some recommendation. It's even said that you publish in a gazette so that if anybody has an issue why a particular license in an area should not be issued, they can come forth with that concern, and gave also some timelines at all. What do you think? Should it be the reverse? Should the minister still have that power to issue the license, or it should go back to Parliament for it to be debated before it's issued at all?
Well, you see, for me, the crux of the matter, regardless of how you go about it, if a license is issued, you need to make sure that the proper steps are followed and the law is followed. A lot of the time when the reason why we have said, and indeed Alan Tremantin echoed that, talking about pausing community mining, because our monitoring regime is virtually non-existent. Even the big mining companies, we find it very difficult to monitor them. How much more the thousands and thousands of small-scale mining? So all right, whether it went through parliament, it didn't go through parliament, somebody has been given a license. He goes to a particular area. Who is checking that he's going according to his license? Who is checking, first of all, that where he's supposed to go is where he's going? When you've got a driving license, does that mean because you've got a driving license, you can drive whilst drunk, you can drive on the pavement, you can drive how you like because you've got a driving license? Of course not. That's why the road traffic are supposed to be, police are supposed to be there to make sure that you go according to the terms of a driving license. It's the same thing. You've got a mining license. You don't just go willy-nilly and you start mining. You're supposed to get something, for example, from the EPA. How often does that happen? So you find somebody who is supposed to be mining in a particular area and is mining somewhere else. Who is checking? Does the community know does the community even know what the laws and regulations are? So for me, the amount of time we spent on, we're going to decentralize matters, we're going to make sure that we localize it. The crux of the matter is that whether you localize it or not, you cannot mine in forest reserves. We should not be able to mine in globally significant biodiversity areas. You should not be able to mine in water bodies. So that it's not a question of whether the license is decentralized or not. Whether it is or not, you cannot grant certain licenses. So let's get on with let's forget the red herrings and get on with the facts of the matter. We cannot just mine willy-nilly everywhere. And we always talk about the miners. The miners are not the only people who form the population of Ghana. There are other people, and all of us need clean water or will perish. All of us need our forests for clean air and so on and so forth. So what we need to do is realize that we have about over 2 million peasant farmers, who are at the risk of losing their livelihood because of the canker of illegal mining. And if you follow the chain, it will come to about 5 million people, because apart from the peasant farmers, you have the people they deliver the food to, the transport network. It's a whole network. So why do we only focus on mining? Let's also look at the peasant farmers. Let's look at the fishermen. Some of the water bodies are so polluted that the fish are all dead. Now, what is happening to the livelihood of fishermen? So let's get real and let's look at what is in the interest of the majority of Ghanaians, and not just a few people who are destroying Ghana for what?
So in this country, because of land ownership, it's quite unfortunate that we're unable to separate the ownership, especially those who oversee it, the chiefs for that matter. Now, the minister designated during the vetting this morning or this afternoon said that it shouldn't be the other way around, that persons are giving licenses, they're given the opportunity to go into the community, then they go to point where they're going to mine to the chiefs. He's advocating that should be the other way around. It should be that the chiefs have a certain power and control, and that they are the ones even going to be pointing that you can mine here or not. Do you still think that on the value chain, we should keep the chiefs on this chain at all?
Well, you see, let's be very clear. A lot of the illegal mining that is going on cannot go on if you don't have the chiefs involved, the political authority involved, the police involved, or sometimes all three. People can't just come and start illegally mining. So what is happening, sometimes you have the complicity of the chiefs. And that's why eco-conscious citizens are thinking of chiefs against illegal mining, to come to support the chiefs who understand what it means to be a chief, who understand that they are custodians of the land and they are supposed to be using it in the interest of their people, not allowing mining to just destroy the whole landscape. So, but having said that, for me, let's look at the crux of the matter. Even whether the chiefs have gone and pointed out the area or not, it's not really the issue. The issue is that, do we even need mining in that particular area? There are other forms of livelihood. You know, there are activities like bird watching. There are so many things that bring tourism. It's not only mining. That can give us a livelihood. So this whole focus on mining, to some extent, is misplaced. Remember, we've been mining in Obuasi for how many decades? How has that benefited the people there? We talk about mining in Johannesburg and how that has benefited the few people, but how has that been in Obuasi? So that we shouldn't think that mining is the solution to all our problems. Sometimes it's more of a curse. And I worry at the new minerals that we are finding, because if even the gold has destroyed the country as it is, what's going to happen when we start mining other minerals? So for me, let's look at other forms of earning money for people. It's not just mining. Even keeping the integrity of the forest. You have carbon sinks. You have the Japanese have what you call sunbathing in the forest. There's so many things you can do. And remember what Professor Frimpong Boateng told us, that when you destroy a forest, you have destroyed a pharmacy. You have destroyed a pharmacy. And so much we can get from the forest. So let's take our eyes off mining and look at the totality of assets we have.
But generally, before I let you go, so this new minister designate, how do you feel generally in answering the questions, his posture, the promise of one of this airline that eco-friendly, eco-conscious citizens have always been asking a repeal of? What's the overall assessment? Are you excited about his nomination?
Well, I would say I'm excited. What I would say is that I was a little concerned that he couldn't be very robust about the state of emergency, because as I've said, it's fundamental. I'll give you an example. If your house is burning, at the same time you need to get a good school for your child, are you going to start getting a good school for your child, or are you going to first of all put out the fire? Ghana is literally burning because the firefighters and the arsonists were one. The country is on fire. You see, we need to believe that we face an existential threat from illegal mining. The canker, the poisoning, the ecocide. We've got maternal deaths, we've got deformed babies, we've got an increase in kidney disease and neurological disease. What else do we need to hear to understand that we need to move yesterday? The next best time is today. So it's not a question of consultations upon consultations. It's a question of putting out the fire. And the best way of doing it, in my view, the view of eco-conscious citizens, is to declare, and not just us. You have the National Coalition Against Galamsey. Lots of people have spoken now. You need to first declare a state of emergency. And he couldn't actually say he was going to do that. And that, to me, was a little disappointing.
That out of the way, the other questions, you're at least impressed and you have a little hope, at least. There's some light at the end of the tunnel that your very favorite ally that you want out repealed, at least he said he's going to be doing that, apart from the state of emergency.
The worst is that another legislation that should be repealed is EI 144. That is the legislation that removed parts of Achimota Forest from the Forest Reserve. Right. It's almost as bad as Galamsey. You are talking about reclamation. You're talking about forest cover. Who would, in their right mind, remove the last remaining forest reserve in Accra, the lungs of Accra? Why would you remove a portion of it from the forest reserve? And it was passed by an executive instrument. So by executive instrument, EI 144 can be repealed by His Excellency the President tomorrow if he's minded to do so.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. We look forward to that repeal as well, even as media houses. And so we're joining force with you and hoping that that very airline that you describe as not a good one is repealed. Thank you so much for talking to us, Awula Sewa. And she's coordinator, Eco-Conscious Citizens. And she's been telling us about how you feel about today's vetting with the Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources. We'll go for a quick break. You're watching The Pulse. We'll be back shortly.